No voice, sir.
Hello. Yes. Good evening, friends. Meeting again in the session of Robert's philosophy. And today we're going to start fourth chapter consecutively regarding the Surah Mayasana. In the last two, three sessions, we have discussed one hypothesis as explained by Robert, whether it is Surah or a deficiency. In order to explain the Surah in modern language, he has tried his level best to correlate Surah with the deficiency syndromes, and he has taken into consideration all the constructive elements of the body and the medicines which comes in the list of antisoric remedy, and how this has been correlated the deficiency disorder which is reflected in the soric manifestations, and that he tried to explain in order to understand miasm in a better manner, and it will be easy to digest for the rest of the people. That's why he has explained about it. This is the fourth chapter where he tries to explain some manifestations of the latent Sora. That is chapter number 25. Latent Sora means everyone is having the Sora inside. Every human being carries the Sora. But every time he is not deceased. Whatever we have learned in first two chapters are the deceased manifestations of the Sora. But if Sora is hidden, it doesn't have a manifestation, a deceased manifestation over there. And if there are no manifestations, deceased manifestation, how will you going to recognize that Sora is there in background? What are the things with which you can understand yes, Sora is there in the background? And that's what he tried to explain in this specific chapter. Some manifestations of the latent Sora so that it will be easy to understand, and you can prevent many disorders by giving antisoric remedies to the even to the children. So let us open your book, chapter number 25, some manifestations of latent Sora. In the last chapter, you learned something of acute manifestations of psoric stigma. Besides the manifestations of acute diseases, which are all directly traceable to the eruptions of Sora, the vital energy often places the psoric poison in a latent state, where it may lie for a longer period, sometimes for years, without manifesting any without manifesting much disturbance, except that the observant physicians may read its peculiar characteristics, even in that latent state, and even though the patient is not disturbed to any degree. So, what he is explaining in this paragraph is nothing but the many times the Sora is there in background, but it doesn't show any disease manifestation because it has been not it has been not stimulated by any exciting cause. But even in that state, the observant physician or or an intelligent physician can find it out the manifestations with which he can confirm yes there is Sora in background. So what are those that he tries to explain in this specific chapter? During this latent state, it requires only a slight shock to the vital energy to bring this miasm or stigma to the fore and make its presence actively manifest in an acute disturbance. So what is this? If patient is in latent stage and some force, some stimulant, some exciting cause is needed and which will bring out some acute manifestations with which you can understand, yes, definitely there is Sora in background. Psychotic or syphilitic never get stimulated in such a manner. These acute manifestations may be due to any one of the many different causes. It may be due to an accident, to an exposure, or to any other seemingly slight cause. But whatever the direct cause of the acute manifestation, it will show the poisonous effects of the stigma, and it is well for a physician to be conversant with the characteristics of latent state so that he may cure the underlying dysplasia in the latent condition and thus head off the acute manifestation, thus protecting the resistant power of the vital energy against the sudden strain and the helping to eradicate the soric poison. See how nicely he has explained. Some shock has happened, some accident has happened, something, some exciting cause, whether it is physical, whether it is mental, whether it is psychological, whether it is chemical, whether it is biological, whatever it has happened, and because of which some sudden explosion happened and patient is presented with some acute manifestation. This is the state which defines that Sora is in background, because without Sora it never happens. And if it happens, then if you tackle that acute condition with acute remedy, you must treat the chronic condition with the help of those manifestations, with the help of antisoric remedy, so that in future that person will be perfectly healthy. He will not in the state of relative health, but he will enter into good health, perfect health, by removing the poisonous effects of this stigma. So this is first indication with which you can understand that Sora is in background, that due to any exciting cause, whether it is physical, chemical, biological, mechanical, or psychological, if this exciting cause stimulates the patient to show acute manifestation, it itself is an indication that Sora is in background. Then in next paragraph, he explains the mental manifestations during latent state. One of the strongest characteristic of Sora in its latent state is the mental condition. Sora patients are mentally alert. Underlying first manifestation is the alert. What is alert? They are quick and active in their motions. Sora patient is not dull, slow like a psychotic personality, or it is not aggressive like a syphilitic personality. The reactions are normal according to the situations. This is a big important thing one must know, and that's why in your repertory you will have this rubric quick to act. These are persons which will going to act in a proper manner. According to the action, there will be a reaction. But reaction is instantaneous. It is not that it is slow or it is not too acute. So it is a natural reaction which is given by these patients, indicates that Sora is in background. This activity is very pronounced and especially pronounced in the keenness and activity of the mind. So this is related with the keenness of the mind or activity of the mind. So these persons, they are in a great hurry. They want to do many things. They goes on doing many things and their mind is alert. They are active, very enthusiastic, very jealous. These are the manifestations of the stoic personality even in latent state. They will work like a Trojan for some times, but they are easily fatigued, both mentally and physically, and profound frustration. So increased activity followed by a exhaustion is the characteristic of the Sora, is the characteristic of latent Sora. So what you will write in your notes, one important point, that increased activity of the mind and body followed by easy exhaustion, easy fatigue is the manifestation of latent Sora. This prostration has such a profound effect upon them that they soon come to the pass where they dread to undertake any exertion, mental or physical, because of the fatigue which they know will follow. So see, these are the people who will going to be very easily fatigued after an exertion. Yes, they are doing many activities, but followed by an exhaustion. Their talk is like that. आता कंटाळा, आता थकलो, आता नको. This is the thing which happens after an active state of the mind, active state of the body, followed by an exhaustion. The fatigue is accompanied by desire to lie down. See, this is very important. The fatigue is accompanied by desire to lie down, and this desire is quite characteristic of this type of the patient. But how much time they will require rest? They will not require a rest for a day or two. It is very short period. They will be happy, and after that rest, again they goes into the same jealous, enthusiastic state. That's why it is a time which is called as repose. So quiet wants to be, desires repose and tranquility. This is the rubric. Quiet wants to be, desires repose and tranquility. You're going to get an akswamika. You're going to get a sulfur over there. This is a very important manifestation of the Sora. It is not a big rest which is necessary. It is just a peculiar characteristic of mental irritation is that it produces sense of bodily heat. These patients will have flashes of heat while they are working. The heat of the room oppresses them. So when they get irritated, they typically produce a typical feature and they talk that my head is hot now. Don't disturb me. My head is hot. I'm angry. I'm feeling very hot. Doctor, माझं डोकं फार गरम झालं. They talks like this. And my body इतकी उष्णता आहे ना. They talks like this. And my body is having a lot of heat. That is another manifestation which such patients always expresses. Their talk is like that. डॉक्टर माझ्या शरीरात एवढी उष्णता आहे की हातापायांची आग होती. My body is so hot that every night I used to have a burning heat in my palms and soles. These are the manifestations. These are very important things patient tells us. The heat of the room oppresses them. They never tolerate that heat. This is one important manifestation of this latent soul. So one by one, you just make over there or right over there. These are the manifestations of latent sora with which you can very easily catch a patient is in soric manifestation. Another peculiarity of the mental state is anxiety. And lot of anxieties is the characteristic of the soric. So he explains over there. This symptom is written all over them. They are anxious to the point of worry and fear. Fear that they will unable to accomplish what they attain. First important fear. They before going to do anything, there is always a fear whether I will accomplish that or not. That they will not be able to carry through their plans. That is a fear whether I will succeed or not, whether I will complete it or not. This type of fear. Anticipatory fears. Anticipatory anxiety is the characteristic of this mindset. Fear that their health will fail in doing what they set out to do. Another fear is that they feel that their health will be disturbed so that they will not able to do. If they get sick, they fear the death. That is a very common manifestation of this. So even they just get a fever, there is fear whether I will die. Such types of fears are characteristic of this man. If they get sick, they get fear the death, or they will be incurable and they become depressed with fear that they will be dependent. Another fear is that they will get dependent because of their illness. So there is fear of death, there is fear of being getting the disease which is incurable, fear that they will become dependent. All those such types of thoughts which rises in their mind and that disturbs them. There is sudden anxiety and anxiety about the heart, particularly when stomach conditions are present. This is very characteristic. They always comes to you, Dr. Mother, please check my heart. Please check my blood pressure. Please check my pulse. And they are very anxious about their heart condition. They feel that there is problem. And when you check, there is nothing wrong with the heart. Their blood pressure is normal. Their pulse is normal. It is just the acid peptic trouble causes anxiety about the heart. It is just because the flatulence causes the anxiety about the heart. And such functional manifestations of the heart are always present with these patients, even though there is no disease present inside them. So this is again one important thing one must note. These are the manifestations of latent soul. In children, the sense of fear is manifest oftentimes in the fear of dark, the fear of strangers, the fear of imaginary things, fear that they will not get school, timid about going to school, fearful that they will be late in school, late to school. These fears work upon child life so intensely that they soon wear themselves out and become thoroughly exhausted. So these are common children's fears. And you're going to find it out. They talks about the ghost and they fear the ghost. They talks about the dark and there is a fear of dark. So there is always the talk is vivacious with children. They talks with one another. There are many children who comes together and there are many. Hello, hello, hello.
No sound, sir.
Just a minute. I'm checking whether there is any problem. Yes. Are you getting now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. There is some problem with the internet. So these are the typical children's fears. There are many gossips goes on in children. They talks about the ghost, they talks about the dark, they talks about TV serial, they talks about the many of the imaginary things because of the TV shows, and because of which the typical fear which comes in their mind is the characteristic fear of the Surikumayas. So they never goes alone in any room, especially at night. Such types of imaginary fears always indicates the Sora is in background. So you must think, even though there is no disease, you can calculate that there is Sora in background and you can give the antisoric remedy so that further damage of the health can be prevented with the help of that remedy. So in the latent manifestations, the children's fears or anxieties, which are very typical, common, are always the story. In adults, they find difficulty in concentrating upon their work and their thoughts keep on changing about, shifting from one thing to another. They cannot concentrate because their thoughts get ahead of their work and they become confused. This is common problem the patient tells you. They explain that, doctor, I cannot concentrate on anything. This is very common with the students, specifically those who used to study, this happens. Those who don't study, it never happens. So this happens only with the students who used to study. And this is quite common that they cannot, they say that, doctor, I'm not able to concentrate. There are many thoughts comes in my mind. When I start studying, immediately thought comes whether I will able to memorize it in during exam. So thoughts run way ahead and because of which they are not able to concentrate. This is very common and stoic manifestation. And because of which they becomes a lot of confused state. They are not direct thinkers except for very short time. For the thoughts come so fast that they are entangled by them. So there are varieties of thoughts which arises in their mind and because of which they are not able to concentrate. This is very common with the story. This appertains to the mental work, but in physical work, they have much the same manifestation. They cannot keep themselves at work steadily. They cannot stay put in one channel for any length of time. So they cannot concentrate even physically also. Whatever the work they are doing, they make it and then after some time they stop that, then they start another task, then again that remains. So there is one important thing that undertakes many things but never remains persistent with that. That is another rubric which you can catch over there. That is sorry rubric. Marathit, you can call it arambashur. They starts many things but never persist with that. They are restless. They complain that they want to do something but they do not know what it is they want to do. So these are the persons who comes to you and explains, Doctor, मला खूप काही करावंसं वाटतं. Doctor, I want to do many things, but I don't know what to do. They start tasks they cannot finish because they are tired of them. So they start with something, they goes up to certain level and they becomes tired and they stop. In their uneasiness, anxiety and restlessness, they are compelled to move about and because they cannot keep still. So during that phase, they become restless, they become anxious, they become uneasy, and they cannot sit in one place. Restlessness is another characteristic which you can catch with them. This restlessness is particularly noticeable at new moon. See, this is the modality. New moon aggravates. New moon, this restlessness aggravates. Characteristic of this mind. Or if in women at the approach of menses. So irritability before menses, anxiety before menses. This is quite common. As the menses are approaching, these ladies starts getting irritated. This is soric manifestation. This is physiological mode. So they are not having any other problem. Only they becomes irritable. They becomes anxious. They becomes fearful. And this is at the approach of menses they used to get it. So see, he is explaining all those manifestations even though the disease is not yet completely manifested or it is not at all there. But such features are there. It indicates the Sora is in the ground. And if you are able to catch that, then definitely you can give that antisoric remedy which is similar to that patient and then you can prevent further damage because of the soric math. So I think we'll stop over here and we'll continue with the same chapter on Monday with the remaining and we'll finish this chapter in Monday's session. So that's all for today and we'll meet directly on Monday. No more material medical session. Thank you and good evening.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Have a good evening.
Thank you.